probably the key thing about the Aborigines is that they're a caring, sharing people. And if we go back, way back, and they consider themselves the first people, the other first people think of them as the first of the first people. The essence of the Aboriginal family was it was a family. If you can imagine somebody in the center of the desert all alone, they were really tight, if you will. To be away from the family was to die. My view of the essential Aborigine is a family sitting around a campfire discussing what's next. And maybe it's we've got to move because there's no water here. And they would get a view of everybody in the family. Same feller. And then they'd get a decision from the head of the family, different feller. And that's the essential Aboriginal. He's a member of a family, and he's got a role, a distinct and important role, no matter what the age, in that family. The sad, sad, sad plight of the Aborigine today in Australia is the Aboriginal family has been decimated over a 200-year period since what they call the occupation, but since the arrival of Captain Cook. In the early 80s, the furthest thing that I had in my mind was to be a missionary. However, Dr. Coley at Gordon Conwell recommended that since I had a missionary instinct, I could very well be a missionary to business people, to men, which I did and loved. In 1985, my church gave me every incentive to go with them to Haiti, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and I saw that I had all of the training, all of the gifts to be a missionary, but thought I'd do that when I retired. I was then 44. So I avoided a call to mission unknowingly until 1990, when my mentor from Gordon Conwell, Christy Wilson, said, "Why not missions?" And I responded, "I haven't got time," typical American male response. And he said, do you know the Holy Spirit? Do you have the Holy Spirit? And I was taken aback. I thought it was obvious. And I said, yes. And he says, well, do you know Acts 1:8? And I said, yes, but I was a little taken aback, and it took me a couple seconds. And I said, you shall receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you. And he said, stop it there, Fred. And he was a kindly gent. He was being a bit direct with me. And he then gave me a sermon on the fact that power meant like dynamite, explosive, the ability to speak in any tongue, the ability to go forth in mission. And I suddenly realized I'd been holding back on the Lord that I loved. I'd been avoiding a call to mission, and that brought me into deep prayer for all of that night, or most of that night. And in the midst of that prayer, I heard a voice much like yours, and it said, I want you to evangelize in Australia. And like a kid, in terror, I said, who? And the voice said, the Aborigines. And that's been the call upon my life ever since. Social scientists describe the Aboriginal culture as a fourth world culture. We all know the third world and the fact that people die from typhoid, but we don't think of that as happening within a first world nation, and that's just it. When you're got a life expectancy declining every year for the last 15 years, while the general population's life expectancy is going up every year for the last 15 years and is the second highest in the world, and you've got conditions like the third world, it's called a fourth world nation. I went totally out of obedience in 1991, the middle of 1991, stayed 3 months. Every Aboriginal that I lived with gave me a different slant on how I could fulfill my call, but the one that stood out was that I was a Christian businessman since a kid. I knew how to apply Christian principles to the formation of an enterprise. I was a Christian planner, and they asked me to come back and teach them how to take what they knew, the Bible, and use it as a basis for enterprise formation. And I did that.
Could you talk about those?
Enterprise development amongst the Aborigines is very, very, very basic, because it starts in building the family unit. Without a family unit, you don't have a family business. Without a family unit, you don't have a church. And so we start at the coalface, bringing man and woman together through prayer primarily, but through every compassionate tool that we can, every discipling tool that we can, and then help that family unit have a family business. The businesses that are typical are a cultural business, to help a person who's got painting skill to express their painting skill, a person that's a musician to express their music in a professional way, a person who's got computer skills to go on, to have a small enterprise selling used equipment, for example, and then getting into something a bit more sophisticated. But that's the basic thing. It's a creative business enterprise development, including churches. We look at a church as an enterprise and a ministry as an enterprise.